Elon Musk says Tesla will have 10 robotaxis on the road during the first week when it launches next month. Then it will grow from there. We'll probably be at 1,000 robotaxis within a few months. Take that with a grain of salt. What it does say is like the company is focused very heavily on scale. And that's what Waymo can't do. That's what Zoox can't do. They don't have scale. And so if they're successful in scale in the same way they've been successful in the rate of improvement for FSD after they went full neural net with V12, if they match that curve, all bets are off.
Welcome to the GigaCast. My name is Gav Blacksburg, here today with Omar, Sawyer, and Farzad. And Elon is back, baby, and we got to talk about it. He's firing left and right, CNBC, Qatar, doesn't matter where it is, he's going to tell you what's on his mind. Before we get started with the show, huge thank you to our sponsor, JOWUA. They make the best Tesla accessories. If you're a Tesla lover, go right below. It is the top comment pinned. We have a discount code special, and new this week, they created bundles for our viewers. So if you want the classic bundle, the starter bundle, we put them together for you and they're ready to go. Go and grab yours now. Let's get into the content. So Elon dropped a lot of bombs yesterday. Sawyer, I was watching through your timeline. You had them all clipped up. I'd love for you to kick us off.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, it's sort of interesting Elon continues to agree to do these types of interviews with legacy media, especially when he's looked so dissatisfied with the questions most of the time. I feel like he'd just be better off doing them with like non-legacy media, but maybe he just feels like, they reach an audience that the others don't. I don't know.
His answers are kind of like his tweets, when he's just like, yes. And just like, wow, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare these days that we get an Elon interview where we're getting like new pieces of info, new nuggets, but I feel like yesterday was pretty good for that. But yeah, just my general thoughts. Elon never really fully left, but it feels like, he's sort of back at Tesla now. And I think he did 3 live interviews yesterday, and a lot of that was about Tesla, mostly based on what I saw. And I did go back and look, and a few months ago, Tesla-related content made up about 5% of Elon's posts on X. And he was much more focused on politics then. But now, Tesla-related content is upwards of about 25% of his posts, and even higher, actually, in the last few days. He's tweeted about Tesla 60 times in the last couple of weeks. And, I think he hates politics. The attacks against him and his companies, I think, really drained him. It was exhausting for everybody, but I think especially him. And he doesn't want to be a politician. I think he wants to be known as a technologist and for the things the good things his companies do. And he did announce yesterday that he's going to reduce his political spending by a lot going forward, whether that's because, he's dissatisfied with how things are going and because he feels like, he's mostly accomplished what he wanted to. I don't know, but I feel like that's a really important statement. A lot of Republicans, I think, were counting on his spending in the midterms next year. So we'll see if that changes. But yeah, he really seems focused on his companies right now, and it's awesome to see. I think the last 6 months, he's been so laser focused on Doge and the campaign and the political side. But a lot of us really became drawn towards Elon for his engineering takes, because he's a technologist, all the things his companies are doing. And Tesla has a huge month next month with its launch of the Robotaxi, and sales need to be good this year on the auto side. So all hands on deck. And it seems like Elon is dialed in. Good to see.
Oh, you're muted. Off.
Classic. He seems really confident that the sales have turned around, talking about, hey, we're just weaker in Europe, but we're making up ground elsewhere. Conservatives are buying more now as well. Farzad, you pretty bought into that?
Yeah, I mean, I do think, at least from like my anecdotal evidence and just sort of digging through US data, that seems to be the case. I think in Europe, it's probably a different environment versus here. I mean, even he openly said that it's softer in Europe. But if you look at the broader auto market, that's an overall trend we've seen this year. I mean, every major automaker is reporting sort of down years versus previous year. So there is softness in the market. Now, one could argue, is Tesla softer relative to them because of some of the political stuff that has happened, especially in nations like, let's say, in Europe, that might be leaning towards one side that sort of views that story incorrectly. But I think, or not incorrectly, like from their perspective, incorrectly based on what Elon's doing. But I think the overarching story that Sawyer put forth, I think, is like the major takeaway here is that there is a concerted effort from Tesla, probably led by Elon, sort of stepping aside from the Doge growth for the last 130 days and re-engaging at Tesla. We've seen a flurry of content And we know that Elon, because, Tesla doesn't have a marketing department per se or an advertising department per se, Elon is the mechanism to get the news out for Tesla. And so are Tesla employees and sort of Tesla executives in the past, but Elon by far has the largest reach. And what's interesting about it too is that there's a major refocus on the AI story, not just the auto story. The framing is completely different, right? The framing is not, hey, look at how cheap our vehicles are, how affordable they are. They talk about it sometimes, but Elon's major focus is like, check out the bot. I mean, this morning's video is super sick and it has a lot of implications long-term for what it means for the bot. Then you have everything about June, Robotaxi. That was a huge majority of the things that were discussed in the last couple of days.
To your point, Adam Jonas, he put out a note last night and he was saying, we believe the events between now and the end of the year will go some ways to convince investors that Tesla's more than a car company. And in many ways, we believe Tesla's role in the Musk economy is more important than ever.
100%. Yeah. And I agree with that 100%. And look at the inroads. I was thinking about this morning. Look at the inroads that Tesla has made with the federal government as it pertains to the adoption of self-driving vehicles, right? And just the tenor and tone from the administration period. From 2016 to 2020, like Trump won, it was EVs don't go anywhere, green new scam, blah, blah, blah. From 2020 to 2024, even though the EV tax credit was put forth, the first few months was like, hey, what about the Model Y? It's not included. And then, oh, you're not a union shop, bad. Billionaire, bad. So like the last 8 years, it's been like an uphill thing. And everybody's like, well, the regulation's not going to catch up to self-driving cars in time, even though they have the technology. And now the Secretary of Transportation is out there chilling with a Tesla bot at Tesla headquarters. And now we're hearing from the Secretary of Transportation that, self-driving cars are going to save lives. They're going to be amazing. And we should do everything we can to adopt them as quickly as possible. We need the data from the auto manufacturers, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the positives, obviously, of Elon being involved a little bit more closely in politics, is that the companies and people can view that however they want to view it, is that the technologies that he's been championing are becoming more at the forefront. And they have to for them to gain acceptance and adoption in the country, right? So I think that's something to watch, and it's very, very fascinating. And then if you think about like what Tesla is doing to sort of develop the bot side of the business from a compute perspective, and all this money they're dumping into compute and powering compute, all those efforts are going to help the self-driving side of the business, the Robotaxi business ramp as well. Because if you can make a bot become fully autonomous by watching video, right, and having it figure out how to do tasks, by default, the amount of compute needed to power that is tremendous. The car is going to benefit from that as well. Like that's the same cluster you're going to use to train the car. So, now the framing, the lens that I think the company is trying to force investors in their way to view the company through is like, that is what matters. The car is the vessel for the AI. The bot is the vessel for the AI. If we get into boats and planes, like Elon has mentioned in the past, way far into the future, those are the vessels for the AI. Maybe they get into drones. I don't freaking know, right? So it's super exciting to watch. It feels like there is a sort of a chasm we're about to hit when it comes to the understanding and the embracing of the AI story from Tesla.
Yeah, Omar, definitely want to get your thoughts here.
Yeah, it's great to see Elon focusing more on Tesla, both through his tweets and through other public statements like this interview. My key takeaway was just seeing the Secretary of Transportation there at the Gigafactory doing a live televised interview and saying, hey, autonomous vehicles are a priority. We need to actually beat China in commercializing this technology and get it around the world. There is an urgent need here to get this technology on the road where it can start preventing accidents, where American technology can flourish and grow and spread all across the world. So that's a very different tone than we've heard from past administrations where NHTSA has been more antagonistic to Tesla. And CNBC even asked about an investigation. He kind of brushed it off. He said, look, this is kind of a routine thing. We're doing our job. So, this whole sort of discussion and framing of Elon coming back to Tesla from his sort of political role, I don't think he really sees it that way. I think he views it all as one and the same. We've talked so much about the negative implications and the protests of this political involvement that Elon's had, but then you look at Secretary Duffy at the Gigafactory. He wasn't at the Waymo factory. He wasn't at the Zoox factory. He was at the Tesla factory. And he was there talking about adopting a national framework for self-driving cars. Not a state-by-state framework like we have today, but really get it approved once and deploy autonomy everywhere. So this is so significant. If they're successful only in changing the regulatory front to allow for national self-driving car deployments and having NHTSA be a little bit less antagonistic and a little bit more pro-autonomy, then I think all the protests, all the backlash, it was worth it for Tesla if you can just make that one change. The entire company is really focused on autonomy and robotics, and it's just incredible how much they focused on that. You even saw CNBC ask about BYD, and he said, look, I don't really view the competition that way. I'm not looking at BYD. We're trying to build an autonomous vehicle that is sort of the platonic ideal of what we think should be built. So that, I think, was really significant. Just the transportation secretary's statements. If you are following how autonomous regulation works and the deployment of this technology, that was hugely significant. Just the way that the transport secretary framed the issue.
Can I ask a question for the panel, actually? Sorry, Goff, did you want to go?
No, I was just saying it was cool seeing them sit down and have these conversations. And it's nice to know that even though Elon's going to be pulling back from the government side and maybe not as involved right here or there, he already has those contacts built in, right?
Do you guys feel like June is like a really freaking big deal, especially since we got confirmation that these are going to be unsupervised cars? Like, I just feel like this is like, and maybe this is just emotional, like, oh my God, finally we're getting something huge happening next month. But like, I'm starting to feel like them actually going around with nobody in the steering wheel and pedal, like behind the, and these things actually driving themselves. It just feels like it's going to recognize for what it is, which is a gigantic step in Tesla, especially with the framing we just walked through, which is like regulatory is going to embrace it. They are going heads on with the bot, and the bot is learning very early stages, but from video. They did the same exact thing in China. They're doing something very similar in Europe, right? Do you guys feel like the market and the broader public actually will embrace what will happen next month? Or do you think it's going to take some time for it to like, do we need like massive expansion?
I think a lot of the naysayers are going to be like, well, it's geofence. Oh, there's remote teleoperators for whatever. Oh, it's only 10 cars at the beginning and it's not that big a deal. But I think people are probably going to be surprised with how quickly this thing scales. If it goes well, like Tesla can just deploy so many more vehicles on the road. And, you know, I think in general, I think the US does not want to fall behind on AVs. I think they're seeing what's happening in China, the incredible rate of progress and innovation happening in that country. And they're like, we can't fall behind on this stuff. And obviously, you know, Waymo has been happening for years. But Tesla investors have been waiting 7 or 8 years for this Robotaxi moment. And it's literally happening next month. So I think this is a huge moment.
I'm a little torn just because of Waymo. I think that obviously the Tesla investors have been waiting for it, and it's a huge moment for Tesla. But the reason that maybe people aren't seeing it as this, you know, cataclysmic event is because Waymo already has these cars on the road driverless. So honestly,
I think it's because Elon has lost some credibility in terms of timing and capabilities with like the Tesla Robotaxi stuff. I think he said, oh, we're going to have 1 million Robotaxis next year, like almost every year or something. Or we're going to be feature complete by the end of this year for the last like 5-6 years. But I think now is finally the moment where it's actually happening. But I think because he's lost that credibility on the timeline stuff, people probably just don't believe him.
The boy who cried wolf.
Yeah.
The boy who cried.
I mean, I think if you look at sort of his track record, he was spot on in saying that you can drive a car with computer vision. Everybody said he was nuts. And if you don't know sort of how the technology works, you might say, yeah, well, Waymo's already had driverless cars on the road. But if you understand the technology, you can see this is really kind of a historic turning point. This is the first time that we're putting a self-driving driverless car on the road where it doesn't have a bunch of extra sensors added on. It's the first time you have a self-driving car that's able to drive safely with just cameras. The same cameras pretty much every modern car has built in. So it's the first time an ordinary mass-produced car off the line using just cameras is able to drive safely. That's a watershed moment in the scalability of this technology. Waymo thinks they can make thousands of their vehicles. Tesla's making millions of Model Y. It's on a completely different level when we talk about the scale out of this technology. So it's huge. It's a historic moment on one hand. On the other hand, it's another baby step in a long series of baby steps. Launching FSD supervised was a baby step. Allowing Smart Summon to be driverless in parking lots was a baby step. Having the cars be driverless in their factories was a baby step. And now they're kind of dipping their toes in the water with the driverless service. It's a big moment. It's one we've been waiting for a long time, but continuing to scale it will be another step. Allowing customer cars to be added will be another step. So it's a turning point for sure, but really just the start of a dramatic scale up. And it'll be really interesting to see just how closely they scale up, or, how quickly they scale up. Elon had some pretty ambitious targets in the interview, but of course, actually achieving those will be dependent on the service actually working and being safe in the real world, which I think will be the most important thing. More important than launching is if they can go 6 months or a year with no major crashes or no major safety incidents. That's what will really start to shut the naysayers up.
That was one of the biggest parts for me when he was speaking about the scalability, because for Waymo, if you want another Waymo vehicle out there on the road, you have to produce it, right? It's not like, I just own a Waymo vehicle and I add mine to the fleet. That's the biggest difference here, right? He basically spoke about you're going to have an app and you can just turn your Tesla on and off in regards to joining this autonomous fleet, and it can go out there. And so all of a sudden it's a whole different model, right? I don't know exactly what to compare Waymo to, but he's comparing it to Uber, Airbnb, and other pieces like that, which is a completely different world than Waymo.
Yeah, and just to really drive home the point here, like say even if this scenario comes across where, which I've heard from some folks, is like, well, no one's going to want to add their car to the fleet because, people are going to throw up in it, they're going to trash it, et cetera, et cetera. Even if that were the case, okay, Tesla can match Waymo's entire fleet with 5 hours of production. In 5 hours worth of production, they match Waymo's entire fleet. So even under that, so and like you kind of walk through the list of like, okay, so here's a mitigating factor, right? Here's a mitigating factor. And if you think about Tesla's process, they've sort of nailed every single one of those. So it just becomes a sort of, Peter Thiel and many other people talking about the 0 to 1. If you can get to driverless with cameras and you can have millions of cars with those cameras, you win, unless somebody else can do the same thing. Especially if you have your own app and you can manage your own fleet and you're willing to do that, et cetera, et cetera.
It kind of feels like the year of the EV as well. So you were posting about this, but the RAV4, and I believe this is what I saw, where they're not going to have a gas model, right? Moving forward, they're just going to have the hybrid. And it seems like everybody's pushing in that direction because that's the best-selling car in the US, I'm pretty sure, or at least here in Puerto Rico it is. Yeah,
I think it's the best-selling SUV in the US, but I was like looking at the Toyota yesterday. I was like, this just already looks dated to me. It's just the technology is not good. And I'm like, the new Model Y is way better, but it can also self-drive, the new Model Y. This Toyota has no self-driving capability. So I think people are just so skeptical still to this day about the vision-only model. But I think next month is going to be Tesla's opportunity to really flex its muscles and show the world, like, look, this technology works with nobody in the driver's seat and it's safe.
Okay, so we have to talk about probably the thing that made Tesla's stock spike the most yesterday, which was discussing licensing FSD technology. Elon was asked about it. He said there's a lot of inquiries, and it wasn't like he was even timid about it. He said, this is something, we're happy to do. It looks like this is actually part of the business model. And I don't know if people really thought that much beforehand.
I mean, he's been saying that forever, though, right? I mean, this is not new news. I feel like
yesterday, it really hammered it home.
Drove home the point. I don't know. I mean, he said that multiple times.
Yeah, they've always been open to licensing their technology. I think people would love to license it, but they have to actually demonstrate that it can work driverlessly and that it's safe first. If they can do that, then, well, who wouldn't want to integrate it into their car? It is dramatically lower cost than any other system like Waymo. So that, I think, is the really key thing here. One thing he said is, the interviewer asked him, can it really be as good as Waymo with all the sensors? And he said, it's actually going to be better. And I think that's the part that most people don't understand. You can just see it if you come here to Los Angeles or any other city, you try FSD, you try Waymo. You'll notice the Waymo's jerky. It sometimes hits the brake hard. The steering wheel's kind of jerking around. It's robotic. And FSD's smooth. It's comfortable. It drives like a human. It can do more with less. So really showing people that's what I think is going to make a huge difference in licensing. A lot of people see the self-driving. They don't know the difference, but how that self-driving car is made, there's a massive difference between Tesla and everybody else. With Waymo, they have to take the car, buy it, ship it to Waymo's remanufacturing facility, take it apart, add the sensor suite over, $100,000 in cost. Then they have to map the city. They have to keep that map updated. There's a lot of steps to get self-driving working in an
Omar,
area.
those Waymo Zeekr prototypes that we're seeing test in LA, are those like purpose built from Zeekr for Waymo, or are those just off the shelf and then Waymo like retrofits them with the sensors and stuff?
Yeah, I think they are actually just a vehicle that Zeekr makes. So
Okay.
they were supposed to save a lot of cost by going to the Zeekr vehicle. It's only $40,000 compared to the I-Pace, which was $70,000. And they have to move because Jaguar is no longer making the I-Pace. But now they have a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs. That $40,000 Zeekr is now an $80,000 Zeekr. So, the point really is, with Tesla, the system just looks at the road with cameras and it can drive. It can drive in Australia, in right-hand drive countries. It can drive in France. It can drive in the Netherlands. It can drive in China. It can drive in the US. And I just can't wait until this technology is on the road and people can actually compare these two systems side by side to see that difference for themselves.
Real quick, so I asked Grok, the Zeekr is a custom built for Waymo using Geely's Zeekr brand. And it retails in China between 39 to 43,000 USD. So even if it came across the pond with no tariffs, the additional sensors that Waymo would have to add, right? That probably is going to add another $20,000 to $30,000 at least of cost, probably more to that vehicle.
30.
Probably.
Wow.
LiDAR, radar,
with a
ultrasonics.
$30,000 cyber cab.
Exactly. That can drive anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the dilemma.
Do you guys think that the Zeekrs look good?
I don't think the look matters.
It kind of reminds me of the Kia hamster car.
It's Soul.
Yeah, the Soul.
I love that thing.
Honestly, I think if it's comfortable, it gets people to where they want to go safely and affordably. I don't think people really care what it looks like.
Okay, so they're just missing that third part.
It's quirky,
exactly.
but I don't think it looks terrible.
It's certainly not a beautiful car in the traditional sense, but I think the design language inside is good. I mean, people are willing to
y'all don't have
accept.
kids yet, bro. You don't like that minivan look.
people are willing to accept, I think, some quirkiness to get self-driving. But sure, if there was a better looking self-driving car and a weirder looking one, maybe that becomes a factor. But right now, I think driverless is huge enough that people are willing to get in a clown car if necessary.
Yeah.
Do you guys think we learned anything new about Tesla, Uber, besides for a definitive that they are not buying Uber yesterday? Shout out. Who's the one that tagged Gary Black? Was that you, Farzad?
I don't know. I
Yeah,
shit on Gary every week.
I think the more and more that I hear about this Robotaxi network that Tesla's doing, I'm like, what is Uber's future? I continue to believe that they don't have a good future with all
trading
these
at all-time highs, by the way, Uber right now.
For some reason, some people are so strongly believe that Uber is going to run its own network or just buy vehicles from elsewhere, or other companies are going to run their robotaxis on their network. But I don't see how they're going to compete with Tesla with the lower vehicle costs, doing the app in-house and removing all those extra fees. I don't know.
So the fact that Uber is trading at all-time highs, to me, tells me that the market doesn't buy that Tesla is going to reach this scale, which they are projecting they're going to reach. And they're going to, because like Sawyer's point is perfect. If Tesla can actually have millions of self-driving cars built per year that can drive anywhere because of their AI solution, okay, all they have to do is just make those cars, quote unquote, all they have to, which is what Uber does, is make those cars available on their app. Uber owns no cars. And what they own right now is the app that connects the human driver to the human rider. Okay. If that human driver no longer exists in the loop and the car, the unit of transportation is driven by the Tesla vehicle, what forcing function exists for Uber to have any piece of that pie? What's the forcing function? It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And, you know, Uber's really trying to position themselves as, hey, just like with human-driven rideshare, we're going to be the platform where you can call any driverless car. And they've got Waymo vehicles on their network. They managed to sign a deal with Waymo where they get exclusive access. There's no Waymo app in Austin and Atlanta, in addition for washing and taking care of and maintaining the Waymo vehicles in those markets. So I think that's how investors are kind of looking at it. And if Uber found a way to maintain its position in an autonomous world, then they probably would grow significantly. The problem is Waymo has launched with their own app in San Francisco and Los Angeles, and people are happy to use that app. It does everything the Uber app does. They've now overtaken Lyft in San Francisco in terms of the number of rides within that geofence. So they've really proven that you can do your own app and that it can be successful. And if you can do that, well, why would you be giving Uber and Lyft a cut?
Exactly. And so Uber, what Uber's counting on, as Omar beautifully put, is like they're counting on the manufacturers of self-driving vehicles to not want to list their car on their own app. And Tesla is doing the exact opposite. From the very beginning, they said you can only operate this autonomously if you operate it on the Tesla app. So that's the signal that says we're going to do it. And it just so happens that that player is also going to be the one that's going to make these in the millions of units per year. And so now Uber has to basically court Waymo, Zoox, and every other autonomous vehicle manufacturer. And they're going to have to say, let me just take care of everything for you from an app perspective. Just give us access to hail those cars. But if the total units of those cars pales in comparison to what Tesla's manufacturing every year, by default, Tesla's going to have the market advantage because their availability for those self-driving cars, which are going to be cheaper per mile, is going to be significantly lower, the waiting times, than what Uber can offer unless there's a critical mass that they hit. But in how many markets are they going to be able to do that? That's going to require millions of units of self-driving vehicles in California, New York, Texas. The US is going federal, right? So it's like that's the game they have to play, right? And it just so happens the biggest manufacturer is not going to do that. They're gonna in-house everything just like they've done in the past, right? So
I know this is slightly off topic, but I just feel like I had to bring it up. So news just came out that OpenAI is buying iPhone designer Johnny Ive's startup for $6.4 billion, and now he's he's taking creative control of OpenAI.
Whoa,
really, really interesting.
What was his startup?
He had like an AI devices startup, and they bought it for $6.4 billion just now, or 6.5.
Yeah, I mean, clearly,
interesting.
His AI devices probably weren't going to be worth much. I think they really wanted to acquire Johnny Ive more than anything.
They said he's going to take creative control, and then he'll design new generation of devices at OpenAI, whatever that means.
So now they're making physical devices?
Yeah.
So like a ground up AI phone, what Apple should have been doing 3 years ago.
It's interesting. It's interesting to think about Sam Altman at the stage of the Apple Developer Conference way back in the day when they announced the iPhone SDK. He had a startup called Looped presenting at Apple. That was probably the first time a lot of people saw him, and now he's bringing Johnny Ive into OpenAI. Pretty crazy.
That's a very interesting move. I got to think through that.
We won't get into this today, but so the failure of Apple to acknowledge and address this, generation of AI and all the changes that are happening, it is incredible how they dropped the ball on this. And now they're having such a hard time. Bloomberg just put out, I think yesterday, exclusive report going into all of like the turmoil behind the scenes, but like, they're stumbling. They don't know what to do. The leadership they don't know what direction to go to. The troops are sort of unmotivated. It's wild how some of these big companies with massive cash hoards just can't figure it out.
And that's why, because of the massive cash hoards, and God forbid the investor base sees that. You saw what happened with Zuck and Meta. He took a huge risk with VR, and then the investor revolted. Tim Cook is the wrong CEO for Apple at this time. He may have been the right CEO for the last 10, 20 years, however long he's been. And don't get me wrong, Tim Cook is absolutely 1000% brilliant. He is a supply chain goat. He is a monster when it comes to probably nobody else better. If anything, maybe if Apple lets go of Tim, maybe Elon should be like, yo, Tim, you want to come run operations for me while we scale up the bot and I set the vision?
Well, you know something interesting there, because I was actually discussing this on a pod last week, is the difference between Google and Apple right now. It does seem like Google's continuing to push forward, right, with a lot of these AI pieces, a lot better than Apple is. And when you look at their CEO backgrounds, Tim Cook is the former COO, right, at Apple. And so he has that operations background. When you look at Sundar Pichai, he's the former chief product officer, I believe. And so he's more focused on creativity and product versus Tim Cook, who's on that operations side. So I think you nailed that point right there as to where their strengths lie and how that's reflected in their companies.
I think it goes deeper than the CEO. For Google, AI is in their DNA. They're a cloud services company. They run massive data centers. Apple's a hardware company. They've always been weak on services. And so that carries forward, and really without a product visionary, it's not surprising what happened. I think what OpenAI is really hitting on here is that in the AI era, we may not be using smartphones in 10 years. If these models keep improving and improving, well, why do I have to tap on the little smartphone myself? Why can't I just ask my AI agent to tell me about what happened on X and to place this order for me and do this transaction for me? It could be a complete revolution in what the user interface looks like for computing. And I think that's what Johnny Ive is coming in to do.
What do you think would replace scrolling? Kind of that addictive, pulling people into the ecosystem, right? It's had the combination of physical and mental. How do you think they'd replace that? Is that on your glasses, and your glasses are just scrolling now?
The replacement is having a life. The replacement is hanging out with your kids, spending time with your family, and just having the AI tell you everything you need to know without you wasting your entire life scrolling.
For only $10 a month, you can get a life.
This is far too wishful, Omar.
Okay, so I think that's an excellent point, though. It's like, okay, the reason why people are addicted to their phones is because the phone offers them something that gives them more dopamine than the alternative. Yes. Or it's more accessible. It's easier to get to, right? So then that AI solution is going to try to solve for that. It's like, okay, what is that? How can I give you a dopamine hit that is easier to get to and more accessible than your scrolling? But it's it's not scrolling, right? It has to be something else. So what is that something else? You know, I think it's such
Neuralink. It's getting fed right into your brain.
I don't know if at some point, probably it's just going to keep tapping your dopamine button until you die. You'll just in your deathbed, Black Mirror, pretty. Anyway, I don't want to get into a dark rabbit hole. That's a very fascinating sort of partnership. You know what's another one too that sort of tickles my brain here as of late? This morning, Tesla has leveraged YouTube to teach the bot before Google.
Right.
Yeah,
what is
what's that about?
Google owns YouTube, and then Tesla's coming out and teaching their bot with YouTube. That's another perfect example. It's like, okay, Google's sitting on a absolute gold mine, and Gemini's making tremendous strides, right, as of late. But what happened there?
You know, one of the funniest things, Farzad, when I heard about this, I was like, now what's funny is, people always talk about botted views. Well, now they're really bot views, but they're actually good bot views, right? It's the Optimus watching. And so,
Evan, can you pull up the video that our Tesla released last night of the Optimus video of it doing all the tasks? Thank you. It's pretty wild, some of the things it's learning now. And it sounds like from the team that they had a breakthrough recently that will enable them to rapidly advance Optimus's capabilities going forward.
Yeah, I didn't love him stirring the pot, but I thought he did a pretty good job of everything else.
Can you make it full screen, Evan?
Look at that. Even one of the engineers in the back in one of these clips.
And look at how many there are, dude. See how many bots there are in the
everywhere.
Not even real food in there.
He's got the purple light on the head.
Look at that. There's like how many bots in the background? 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Do you see his mouth?
Yeah.
Back up there, Evan. Like 5 seconds. No, beforehand. Go back like 20 seconds. Yeah, watch this guy on the left. Right here. Watch the guy on the left. Him right there, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it did it. He's like, whoa, it worked. Yeah, and this is 2x. So this is
I can only imagine.
Can you guys imagine, like, I went all in on Tesla in 2018. I never in a million years did I imagine we'd see this, like, just a few years later. I didn't even think they would ever do robots. Like, I knew, obviously the cars are, sort of a robot in their own form, but not humanoid. This is so wild to me.
So they're all learning from first person POV videos? Is that what I'm seeing there at the end?
Yep. They record all those at the lab, and then it mimics what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, a great CEO would have competed fiercely in the auto business, gone head to head against BYD and tried to win that rat race. A legendary CEO creates a new market, focuses the company on what it does best that others don't know how to do. And a lot of people probably don't realize that the Tesla AI team was founded by two founders of OpenAI, Elon Musk and Andrej Karpathy. And they built a legendary team of just really some incredible people. So what they're showing in this video is really a breakthrough in the Tesla bot training process. We're getting a lot closer to the holy grail here, where you just tell the robot, hey, I want you to do this with natural language, with text or with speech. And the robot can actually do that. And you have one model that's trained to do a number of tasks using natural language. So before, they were really training the robot using teleoperated data. Someone had to wear this whole motion capture suit, and they would have to capture all the motion and then teach it how to do the task. It was a very sort of manual process, and you needed one model for each task. This is a breakthrough where now they no longer need to use that teleoperated data. They can just simply have human video of a human doing something without that teleoperation suit, and they can learn just from that first person video. So this is a breakthrough. It scales much better than motion capture. And going forward, they're going to allow it to scale even with third person views. So watching a video on YouTube and learning tasks even from that. So this is a lot closer to what we would want to see for a production robot model, where you can literally just speak to it, ask it to do any task, and just like an LLM, it can generalize very well and do that task with just a simple natural language instruction.
Is this similar technology, Omar, to me and you were discussing or on the pod last week about that Matic robot that you got? And I actually thought it was really fascinating what you're talking about, where it's like your voice, right? Telling it, hey, clean up over here. And so I got on a call with him because I wanted to learn more about it. And he told me that Andrej Karpathy has one of the Matic robots and uses it. And so it seems like it's a kind of similar technology.
Yeah, I'm not surprised Karpathy has one, given his love of computer vision, but this is a level far more advanced than the Matic robot, right? The Matic robot is really just trained to do one task, which is vacuum and mop your house. And it's amazing, by the way. But this really, you can tell the robot, hey, stir the pot, close the curtain. And just the same way an LLM can understand your natural language instructions, the robot should be able to do the same thing and translate that into action. That is the real breakthrough in how this robot is trained. And it brings us a lot closer to actually having something that you can put in your house and just use like a person. I mean, we've never had that. For robots, you've always had to program in every move. Having something where you can just speak to it and it just knows what you mean and it can do it, that's a revolution in robotics.
Farzad, do you think that they'll be able to learn even like social clues and cues and potentially like kind of reading emotion, maybe even down the line from videos like this?
I mean, I think ultimately the goal of the bot is going to be as helpful to humans as possible. And Elon has talked about, he wants it to be your best buddy, or it wants it to be your best buddy. So by default, if you want it to be a human's best buddy, you're going to have to understand facial things, just like TikTok, bro. TikTok does that today already. The Chinese figure that out, right? That's why it's so addictive. It's because it looks like how you react, that the camera looks at your face.
Really?
And it's like, oh, sad. Yeah, I mean, that's my understanding of how TikTok works.
Wait, they have access to the camera while you're scrolling and they're watching your reaction?
I mean, that's why the whole Trump administration is like, yo, like you need to divest because we don't trust you with this thing, like invading the faces of every American, basically, right? That's their claim.
Wow.
Okay. Anyway, but the technology already exists. So by default, that's that. But I think the much bigger TAM for a robot is to be able to do useful work, is to build things, is to help with things in the house, is to help with things outside of the house. That's where it's very, very helpful. And the complexity, like sort of the question about the Matic robot, right? Which I have one as well. Shout out Matic, not a sponsor, but they sent me a free one and it's freaking incredible. It really is incredible. It really legitimately is an incredible product. I think they're going to go really far. That's like baby FSD, baby FSD, because all it's really doing, it's like backward, forwards, left and right, and then recognize simplification, recognize the environment with computer vision, right? With a robot, the degrees of movement are like if you want to pick something up where you have to manipulate your fingers to pick it up, okay, you have to have neural nets for your feet, your knees, your hips, your balance, your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, your fingers, right? Your hands. And you have to understand your position. So the amount of compute that goes for the training and the actual processing of that is vastly different. It's so much more than a car. This is a very stupid, simplified version. It's probably not even completely right. But the idea is that there's a lot more variables into teaching or having a robot operate with artificial intelligence than a car. It's just way, way more complex. But it's just compute. You just need more chips. Obviously you have to be good at like creating the models and everything, the neural nets to make it happen. But as long as you do that, the force, like you can get to that endpoint with a compute. And again, that compute is the same thing that teaches the car. So as you're ramping that up, the car gets better as well. So it's so fun. This whole thing is going to be so fun. And so the fascinating thing now with the bot is the overlap of useful tasks and how easy it is to train will dictate how quickly it's adopted. And so like what percentage of the market that, like, if there's $100 trillion worth of TAM on the planet for everything, what percentage of that 100 trillion, I'm just making a number up, but what percentage of that 100 trillion are boring, repetitive, dangerous jobs that are quote unquote relatively easy to train with the amount of compute we have today? That is Tesla Bot's market right now.
Yeah. I'm curious, just because we're talking about a lot of these different pieces and specifically because we touched on OpenAI, one of the other pieces of news, again, lightly talked about yesterday, the reporter suggested it to Elon, was in order to maintain your control, and we could talk about that if we want, the thought of Tesla acquiring XAI, right? Bringing that into the mix. And since they're probably using XAI already for a lot of the Optimus pieces, it does feel like there's some concepts that make sense here. Sawyer, I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Right. I don't see how that would work. Like XAI is worth 125-ish billion right now, and Tesla has 30 billion in cash. Maybe they could do some stock swap, but at this point, I don't think it makes sense. I think a partnership makes a lot more sense than just Tesla buying XAI outright. One of the reasons that Elon created XAI as a separate company was because he knew it was going to be hard to recruit engineers and researchers to Tesla because, they want to be they want to have an equity stake in the company. And Tesla was already worth, $1 trillion or so at the time. And when they started XAI, obviously it started at zero, ground level. So they were able to get, the founders and the other employees were able to get equity at a really small valuation. And now it's worth, 100 billion plus or whatever combined with X. And now they're all worth a lot of money. So I think Elon alluded to this. He said, like, one of the engineers on our autopilot team or AI team was going to leave Tesla, but he said, but I was able to convince him to go to a separate company, XAI, for the AI instead. So I think ideally Elon probably would have wanted to keep, XAI under Tesla, but it just wasn't doable at the time.
Right.
Yeah. I think at this stage, they're at very different levels of maturity. Tesla's a publicly traded company. They're expected to be profitable consistently. XAI is a young startup. They don't care about profitability at this point. They care about making progress. They want to build their clusters out as fast as possible. They want to spend through stock-based compensation. it's a very different, company from a financial sense. And I think merging them together and having XAI sort of report everything publicly at this stage would be inadvisable. It wouldn't really work out that well. But looking out into the future, where Tesla's using Grok in their cars, that's an integration that's going to ship soon, probably using Grok as part of Optimus, and where the companies are both building these large compute clusters, I think there is going to be a moment where XAI is going to need some liquidity. Those people who came in for the equity are going to want some way to turn their equity into cash. And rather than doing an IPO, a merger with Tesla could make a lot of sense, I think.
I think there's a lot of SpaceX does it though currently, which is just through via secondary, or SpaceX is still raising Virgin money. They just raised, I think, 20 billion or something. So I don't know. I would be shocked if they merged.
Well, I think, there's other ways, obviously, to get liquidity. And, a secondary has some limitations. Obviously, having, a stock that's publicly traded, that's an unmatched level of liquidity. But there's just a lot of overlap in what they're doing. They're both building these compute clusters. They're training these models. Tesla's building these chips in-house for inference and training. There, I think, is quite a bit of synergy for adding them together. And I think you could do it in a way where when you look at the XAIX deal, they did an all-stock deal where all the X shares just became XAI shares. I think you could do a similar thing where all the XAI shares just become Tesla shares at some ratio, and it's actually value accretive. The value of having that technology within Tesla, I think, would make the market cap probably rise, assuming this is a mature and somewhat profitable company at some point in the future.
Wouldn't there be dilution? I mean, maybe the value add of bringing in XAI would outweigh any potential dilution, but
yeah, there would be dilution, of course, of the existing shareholders. But then you also get additional revenue, additional earnings, and additional growth in the future. So at the right time, which is not now, but at the right time, I think you could have a situation where you do an all-stock deal and it's actually value accretive to Tesla shareholders. The diluted stake that the existing shareholders have actually could be worth far more with XAI in the fold.
It's an interesting theory on both sides, right? I agree with you guys. I don't think it's happening in the short term, but you never know. And I will say, just the point you were saying there, Sawyer, if there's anything that they want to get diluted by, it's probably XAI, right? Like as a Tesla shareholder.
Honestly, if a merger was proposed and it was a shareholder vote, I do actually think shareholders would probably approve it, despite the dilution.
They approve Solar City.
I think it would be controversial. I think the valuation has to be right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there is a lot of overlap. So it's not out of the question. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but 5 years from now, depending on how things are going, Optimus is a product that's out. There's synergies that can be achieved. They need some liquidity. I mean, I wouldn't say it could never happen.
Yeah, it makes sense. Switching back real quick to FSD and some of these other pieces. Farzad, have you seen these driverless cars or with safety driver, whatever? Have you seen them driving around, logging these miles? He said that they're running 24/7.
I don't know how I would know. And this is the beauty of their process. Like, it really speaks to what they're doing here. How would I know that it's a safety driver behind a self-driving Tesla when those Model Ys, like, I can just ride around with an FSD? I mean, unless it has a manufacturing plate, right? That's the thing. That's how would I know?
They're not like marking them or anything.
I don't think so. I think it's just manufacturer plate. But that's again, like, to really drive home the point, the best-selling car in the world, the Model Y, next month is going to be riding around Austin without a driver in it.
I like that he said 24/7 too. So it sounds like they have safety drivers on shifts here, just to log as many miles as possible.
Tons of data. Yeah,
you do.
Yeah, I mean, they've even got people working the graveyard shift at Optimus, according to some of the job postings.
Yeah.
Well, I know that for Elon's companies, by the way, pretty much all of his companies, they've always had graveyard shifts across the board.
Psychotic culture.
Yeah, I remember SpaceX when I was graduating college. One of my buddies got a job offer from SpaceX, and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." He goes, "Yeah, but my hours, I'm going to work like 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. At SpaceX," and he's like, "I'm going to take the job though. I want to work for Elon." And so they can attract the talent enough that you can get people to say, "All right, I'm just gonna sleep during the day, work at night."
Yeah,
It's pretty crazy.
You actually. It's crazy. You actually, you reminded me of something I wanted to say before. On that interview with Faber, the first part on CNBC, when Faber said you're going to have like 10 to 20 or 10 to 12 cars launch, right? And then Elon said in the first week. Like, yeah, in the first week, right? That is signal. And so that's signal that says that, and again, Elon's timelines are never correct. They're always far off. Like 2 weeks might actually happen next month, right? But it really signals that the company is pushing really, really hard to expand really, really quickly. And that's been the tone and tenor from the company, right? Yeah. So this is from Sawyer. Go follow him. Handsome devil. Elon Musk says Tesla will have 10 robotaxis on the road during the first week when it launches next month. Then it will grow from there. We'll probably be at 1,000 robotaxis within a few months. Okay. Take that with a grain of salt. But what it does say is like the company is focused very heavily on scale. And that's what Waymo can't do. That's what Zoox can't do. They don't have scale. And so if they're successful in scale in the same way they've been successful in the rate of improvement for FSD after they went full neural net with V12, if they match that curve, all bets are off. Especially with the wind behind their sails from the Secretary of Transportation embracing that technology and creating a framework nationally for them to actually plop these cars down. You have a perfect storm of freaking Teslas everywhere operating as robotaxi. They might eclipse Waymo's. Like there is a world where Tesla will be doing more robotaxi miles than Waymo per week by the end of the year. That exists. They just have to execute at a very high level.
Yep.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, Farzad, because with the current state level regulation, even if you have a technology that's a lot more scalable, if you're still going state by state, you might not be able to expand that fast. With the national framework that Secretary Duffy talked about, that scalability is unlocked in a way that could be really significant for Tesla.
Yeah, there's just two more topics that I want to make sure that we touch on. Briefly, Neuralink. It got worked into there, something that he spoke on yesterday. Do you guys feel like we got any new information, or is it mostly just a rehash?
They got 5 patients now. I think we thought there were only 3 or 4, but everything else was known. We know they're going to install their new blind sight chip to enable completely blind people to see for the first time later this year, early next year. So,
what's current valuation of Neuralink?
8.5-ish, I think.
Single digit.
Yeah, I mean, Neuralink has got to be the craziest of his companies, even though it's one of the most low key. I mean, yeah, self-driving cars are cool. Rockets are cool. Putting a chip in someone's brain and they can control a computer with their mind. That's got to be the most far out one. And yeah, it's just amazing what a difference this technology has made into these 5 patients' lives.
Every single product that they put into someone is changing somebody's life. Like you can't necessarily say that about like Starlink or whatever, even though those are all great products. But Neuralink literally changes people's lives. Every patient, it's incredible.
We had the third Neuralink patient, Brad, on our channel. We interviewed him. So he has ALS, and he can't speak, he can't move. He's basically trapped in his own body, but he can feel everything. Right? He's obviously completely lucid. And before he had an eye tracking software where he would try to like interface with an old computer because it's only one specific type of computer. And then if it's too bright, it doesn't work. If it's too dark, it doesn't work. If he's in a bumpy situation, it doesn't work. Okay. Now with Neuralink and the underlying software that Neuralink has, plus with Grok, okay, we were literally able to sit down and have a full on conversation for 2 hours with somebody with ALS.
So if you ask him a question,
unbelievable.
That is wild. So if you ask him a question, how long does it take for him to like have the response ready?
It depends. So he has Grok plugged into his Neuralink, and it actively listens to what's being said, and then he can sort of match the type of response that he wants to make, and he can read it on the screen. And if it matches what he wants to say, it predicts what he's trying to say, then he can select that. and then it will just talk back to us. Or he can just, write out the answer, and he has preset answers as well, like yes, no, maybe, whatever. But he can use those two interfaces to converse with somebody.
So just for those who have not really looked into this too much, how is he selecting the answer, these other pieces, right?
Yeah.
Literally he's just thinking it?
So he has a screen and he has a pointer. And so the pointer basically acts as a mouse would, right? But then they have trained, the Neuralink has trained based on a neural net, based on his neural net, his brain. It's saying, okay, so when I'm thinking about moving, let's say the pointer to the up and to the right, this is the signal that I'm sending. And so all he has to do is think about going to that specific space on the screen to select the thing. And he just he just thinks about it and it happens.
One of the cool things I've just thought of is, in addition to restoring current human function, there's kind of a world where Neuralink can extend into additional function. Like, what if I wanted another set of arms on my body that I could then also control potentially in the future if I'm like working in some type of job in manufacturing? It feels like it allows you to just have these limitless possibilities, right?
When I just hook it up to a bot directly.
Yeah. Control Optimus with your mind. That's the kind of thing we're going to see in the future.
We're trying to lobby Elon to give all the Neuralink patients, the first 1,000, their own humanoid robot. So Nolan and Brad get their own bot, and then they can do everything physical. I mean, talk about a life-changing thing. Really think about it. Brad's biggest thing that he keeps talking about is like, I don't want to keep burdening my wife with all these tasks. Like, I wish I had a way. I don't want to speak on his behalf, but I think it would make a huge deal for him and his family, even though I know his wife is more than happy to help Brad. But imagine if he had a bot that he would be able to control with his brain to help him do everything physical. And imagine how much time and stress that frees up from his wife.
Neuralink patients who get a robot, it should come with a robo puppy. That's my pitch.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be incredible for ALS patients who can't use their own body to be able to control a robot body. I mean, so many simple things they can't do, walking around the room, shutting the blinds that they need help for, they could do themselves. That would be just incredible.
Have you guys seen the TV show Invincible?
No.
Oh, there's one of the characters in there literally is this guy Rudy, and he was born in a completely disformed, lives in a vat, but he's a super intelligent person, and he has a robot body, and he controls a robot body, and the robot body goes and does everything. It lives his whole life for him. So it's kind of a very similar concept.
It's crazy that you got the Tesla bot, and then you got the Neuralink chip, and then maybe they'll be able to talk to one another. And then you're using Grok from XAI to be able to converse, and then you're using Starlink to connect to the internet from SpaceX.
Yeah, I had
this is why Elon's the freaking GOAT. He's the GOAT.
I had this thought about Elon the other day where I was like, okay, I don't know exactly where the idea from Starlink came from, but I was thinking about, because Elon was telling us how he travels so much, right? He talked about, I'm in LA today, I'm in California. I was like, if you're traveling that much, you have to have the ability to work in the air. And I wonder if, Starlink was maybe man, I wish these airplanes had some better Wi-Fi so I could do my work while I'm traveling on these jets.
Sure I'm partly that, but I also, it's also likely, how are we going to fund going to Mars? Rocket launches alone aren't going to do that. So
I think it's that, and it's also okay, now that I've created this reusable rocket technology, what are the markets that I can get into to disrupt now that I can put stuff in space for 100 times less than everybody else? Oh, satellite seems like a good one. Oh, if I can put on, okay, so that means that I can do 100 satellites at a time or whatever. Oh shit, I can probably do a constellation. Oh my God. Boom. Starting is
right. Okay, last piece that I wanted to touch on with you guys is just talking about the stock for a second. So Elon, and tying the stock into delivery numbers. So Elon basically was saying, hey, we're back on track. Look at the stock, right? We're back over $1 trillion market cap. People have that confidence. The Tesla turnaround has happened. And I wanted to hear from you guys. First off, I do personally believe that there's my not so bold prediction is that Tesla is going to be green by the end of next month. And it was down 43% at one point this year. On the other side of that, I do want to hear from you guys if you are buying into this, hey, we're going to get better delivery numbers. We're going to get better revenue numbers, in the next quarter than the pretty massive drop that we saw in the last quarter. That's anyone who'd like to take.
Well, the leading indicators we're seeing are not good. So, I'd love to be surprised by a great delivery number, but right now it looks like deliveries are going to be down year over year again. So if you're buying this stock, you're not buying it for a delivery beat. You're buying it because you think they're going to be dominant in autonomous vehicles and robotics. And there's going to be a lot of volatility when you have a thesis like that, because as people's beliefs about whether they're going to be successful swing one way or another, that volatility is going to be reflected in the stock. But, I think this is just a legendary company. You can't get too caught up in the emotions of the stock swinging one way or another. I mean, it'll drive you crazy, especially with a name like Tesla. But, long term, I think if they can execute on their vision with robotaxis and Optimus, it's a multi-trillion-dollar company for sure. So I'm still buying and holding. And I think investors who do that, rather than trying to time the market or figure out when it's going to swing one way or another, will do pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, to me, if Tesla can showcase robotaxi expansion, quick expansion, and they're able to get the humanoid robot doing useful tasks in the factory that actually impacts the bottom line, and they start bringing in profits from the robotaxi network and unsupervised FSD and cost savings from humanoid, and they start selling humanoid to, say, businesses or governments that want to use them, okay, and they start showing up in the P&L, then it becomes much easier for analysts to model this out. And if they are able to model this out, then they can see that the markets that Tesla is introducing itself into are multi-decatrillion over the long term. And so it becomes an exercise of, okay, what percentage of that market are they going to have? And then you put a multiple on that, and then you go. And it's also like predicated by macro. So I just read like a couple minutes ago, there was just a bad auction on our 20-year treasuries, and the stock just took a massive dump because of that. So, okay, so what's J. Powell going to do? Is he going to lower rates? What's our debt situation like? So macro is going to dictate a lot of it, but from Tesla's perspective, I think their next 1 to 12 months will define the next 5 years and how well they execute. Because if the market can realize how well they're executing, then who knows? Maybe they'll bring that forward. But I don't want to make any predictions.
Yeah, we did dump like 2% there. But yeah, it really is. I think you nailed it there with unsupervised as well. It got me really excited. I think when I started looking at Tesla transparently, it didn't get me so excited to say, oh, the car can just drive for me, but I still have to monitor it. The vision here and the dream is what Elon said yesterday, right? The car is driving and I'm sleeping. I'm reclaiming my time truly. I have my laptop out in front of me and I'm just doing work on my, my JOWUA lap mat thing, right? As the car's driving. And so that to me is the dream and the vision. And that's where it becomes a no-brainer to get a Tesla. It's really nice that it can drive for you right now, I do think. But when you can reclaim that time, that's when it actually is really value adding more than a nicety, right?
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, really good pieces. Sawyer, I know that you were intently clipping and posting yesterday. Is there anything else that we should touch on from everything that was covered?
I think we covered most of it. There were a million clips. I don't want to scroll through all of them, but I think we covered enough.
No worries. Yeah, we hit on it really well. This was a great breakdown. Appreciate you guys, as always, diving into all the little topics. There's so much more to come. June is an exciting time. We're now 10 days away from June, and I think we're going to have a lot to cover in here. To everybody that's been watching, we're not closing out just yet, but real quick, we had one of our most popular videos ever on the last week video about Optimus, but about 73% of those that watched it are not subscribed yet. Means the world to us, and obviously we're going to keep providing great content. Just tap that subscribe button right there on YouTube, hit the follow button on X if you're watching on there. Join us for the journey. Tesla's just getting started. SpaceX, Grok, so many more things, Optimus that we're discussing. Join in now. Invest early, right? This is like getting in a Tesla at $10 million, valuation. We'll sort of the top together. With that being said, let's roll into a little round of Tesla talk before we close out here. Maybe if you guys have any favorite stories or experiences in your Teslas this past week. Farzad, you got one?
Omar had a box. He was showing a box earlier. What's the box? What's that beautiful box?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of people have been having problems with the cabin camera. Tesla just recently had to relax the cabin camera. A lot of people were getting strikes. But this JOWUA phone mount, this helps a lot. Just mount your phone to the screen. Killer.
That's literally
It'll
what I
solve all
use
your
it for.
problems.
That's the only reason.
You guys should be off the road.
I'm not
Come out
texting,
with
but like to look,
unsupervised.
I can't even, like, it was so sensitive. You look down and it just yells at you. I'm like,
Yeah, Sawyer can't be missing breaking news because of FST. So
yeah, come on. What do you?
Sawyer's breaking news is brought to you by JOWUA.
Hey, real quick on JOWUA, Evan, if you could pull back up the website. So I did speak with them and I asked them, I said, I think that we could use some giga bundles and put together a couple of options for our followers. And so worked with JOWUA and they actually created 3 bundles here for our listeners specifically. This was based on a conversation with them and there's discounts on all of the bundles as well. So I basically looked through it. Well, I don't know if they called it the giga bundle on here, but it's the 3 bundles up top.
They should have. That's a branding opportunity right there. Come on,
get it
bro.
on there.
What are you doing over there? Make some magic happen.
This was looking at the most popular purchases from you guys as well as our listeners. And so I just wanted to maybe get your guys' thoughts live as we can look at them. They did Essentials, Premier Interior for the Model Y Juniper, and then a more expensive one. The Essentials one, if Evan, if you want to click into it, I think it'll just show the details. So this is the underscreen invisible station, which you guys have raved about. Seems like it's one of your favorite products. Of course, the fold-away car mount, which was that the one that was just shown right there?
Yep.
Yep, that's one that just got shown. The station integrated MagSafe LED, the invisible station as well for the power hub. Just like a not too expensive package that I think really helps you start powering up and things that you guys are consistently using. Then I really think that you guys would like the second package, that Model Y Juniper. I have a feeling that this will be one of the best selling ones because then here you're getting the floor mats, you're getting the rear underseat air vent covers, right? The tissue box that has so much history on this channel, and all the other pieces throughout. And then Evan, let's just take a look at the last one and then we'll get the guys' thoughts. This was the all-in-one package. So if you just want to be set, what do you guys think about this? This covers pretty much everything for people.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to go with this one, I don't know why you would ever need anything else.
Yeah, so many people will message us and say, hey, I'm getting my first Tesla. Maybe you're getting the new Model Y. What accessory should I get? And you can't really go wrong with this JOWUA set. Just has everything you need.
Yeah, the only thing that I might ask them to add to this would be, I don't know if I see it, the little table things that you put in front of yourself, the seats.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that I would say maybe just add in. But
I think no. I think the tray has to go in the GigaCast starter pack, bro.
Yes, okay. GigaCast starter pack specifically.
Yeah, we got to put the tray, the charging dock, the tissue box, the magnetic holder. Like we got to just make it very eclectic. Like the things that you don't think would go together. That's the good. No, I saw. And last, I just want to throw something. Like I can't drive home enough the quality of the stuff. Like JOWUA, it's truly like their stuff is truly high quality. Like I'm very happy with their quality. The tray's holding up great. The phone stand's holding up great. The phone stands I've used in the past usually are flimsy or they're made out of really crappy plastics. The JOWUA one is like actually like it's metal. It's like it feels strong. And the sort of the suction, not the suction cup, but the magnetic holder is really good. The way you can bolt it and just have it in place, it holds super strong. I have a pretty heavy phone. I have like the largest iPhone that they make, and it's pretty heavy, and it just stays solid right on there. The suction cup that goes right on the screen right behind, it's beautiful. It doesn't move. You can move it up and down. It's great. It really, I'm very, very happy with it.
I see you record videos in your car. Do you have your phone on that holder when you do that?
I do.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great. It works great. I'm actually going to post one today. So if you want to go check that out, go to Farzad.
Go check it out. Farzad, your channel's obviously been popping off as well. You broke 300,000 subs. Congrats on that.
Thanks. There's numbers. I'm just very appreciative of everybody watching. Just like everybody else, I'm sure.
Yeah, and you did shout out, by the way. I would also just throw this out there one more time. If you're following these guys on X, I do recommend subscribing to them as well. I subscribe to all 3 of them. You get a little bit of extra content. Sometimes I've especially seen from Omar and Sawyer where they'll drop like screenshots of things that maybe aren't, they don't want to put out fully public, but you can come see some behind the scenes.
The way I look at subscribing on X is like, if the dollar amount is low enough for the subscription rate, just subscribe to them if you like their main feed posts. Don't go in expecting a bunch of extra content for only a couple bucks a month. Just go in there wanting to support them. And if they people post extra content, great.
Omar, I'm going to take one mailbag question. By the way, wanted to shout this out for those that watch to the end. If you're on YouTube, we are going to start doing mailbags at the end of these. comment below the video some questions that you would like us, maybe like denote like this is for the mailbag or something like that, because sometimes people are just asking us random questions. But let us know what you'd like us to ask in the next one. Evan, can we pull up that one question for Omar? I want him to answer it before we do close out. If Evan has it on lock. I believe that this was, Omar, if you were a potato, what type of potato would you be? Are you a French fry? Here we go. If Omar would eat a potato.
Ooh, great questions from the viewers this week. Hopefully,
before you answer, actually, Omar, have you ever seen potato spelled like that, or is that the first potato?
I guess I would be a French fry. It's kind of an interesting question, actually, because I actually have a tattoo of a potato on my ankle.
Oh,
but
no.
Yeah, I think I'd be a French fry.
Oh my gosh! Wait, why'd you tattoo a potato on your ankle?
Well, it's a long story. Don't worry about it. We'll save that for the next episode.
He lost the bet.
Next mailbag. Okay, cool. Farzad, any other comments from you?
Just the last thing I'm going to say, I think there's a lot of different ways to do potatoes, and one of my favorite ones. Okay, so the little golden potatoes, like the mini golden potatoes that they sell in a little bag. Okay, cut those suckers in half. Just drench them in olive oil, salt, pepper, maybe a little bit of garlic powder, onion powder. Okay, and then put them in the oven at like 450 degrees for like 25 minutes, and then flip them and broil it for like 2 minutes to get the other side nice and crispy. Okay. Mwah. My favorite kind of having a potato. Anyway,
those do sound good. Since we're on the potato topic, I actually had maybe the best potato of my entire life last week. I went to a Japanese place here in Puerto Rico called Kumo, and they had the best salmon tartare on top of fried rice that I've had. And then they also had one of the best potatoes, which is like a dish that came with it, and some steak. So shout out. All right, too much potato talk. We're not
our next sponsor. We'll get them to sponsor instead of the other one.
Big Potato. Thank you, Mr. Potato Head. All right. Thank you so much, everyone that made this possible. Thank you to our producer, Evan, to the editing team on the back end. Thank you, Alex, for running the channels. That's going to do it for this one. This was a fun one. We'll see you on the next one next week. Keep an eye out. Fridays, these keep on dropping, and there can continue to be full of great tech information. Oh, last thing, if you're watching on Spotify, give us a little 5-star review on Spotify. Thank you. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye, everybody.